So what am I looking at exactly? Admiral Cistern asks, as the video of a transparent circle with some strange doodle-like designs in it is approached by what appears to be a large number of tadpoles, and the entire thing turns brown and collapses in on itself when one wriggles its way in. I thought that would be obvious, sir, the scientist explains. I've learned to stop making assumptions, Dr. Wren. Spell it out. What you saw was an attempt to fertilize a Tret woman's egg with exclusively Y chromosomal spermatozoa. As you saw, the moment the cellular wall was breached, the entire system collapsed, as if introduced to an extremely virulent poison or acid. We had bought and paid for 30 eggs, and we noticed a very interesting pattern. The Dr. Wren explains as he moves to the next video. See here? This is an unaltered spermatozoa sample introduced to the egg. Genetically speaking, there are few enough differences between a Tret and a human as they could be considered another nationality and not a separate species entirely. Yet observe. He states, and the image shows brightly and dimly colored sperm swimming to an egg. The brightly colored sperm quickly starts to burrow at roughly 5 times the pace as the others, and then the wall becomes completely impermeable to the remaining swimmers. What did I see, Doctor? You saw spermatozoa colored with HFY 33342. X chromosome portions of the samples retain a higher amount of the chemical and therefore appear more visually striking than their male counterparts. So, for some reason, alien eggs resist male sperm by a factor of roughly 5 to 1. Furthermore, the eggs spontaneously die when introduced exclusively to male sperm. Admiral Cistern summarizes for clarity's sake. Yes, sir. In every scenario where we have introduced exclusively male spermatozoa to the eggs, they have spontaneously aborted. Why? Admiral Cistern asks, and Dr. Wren merely shrugs. Not an answer I expected of you, Doctor. It's extremely frustrating, sir. The moment we left our little corner of the galaxy, we were effectively informed that everything we know about physics, biology, chemistry, and frankly every field of science excepting math was incorrect. I don't know how or why this is happening, but I have found a way around it. Observe, sir. Dr. Wren explains, and Admiral Cistern nods. I understand, and in light of such things, I'm willing to let a lot slide so long as the more exuberant members of my ship do not cause themselves, the crew or the Dauntless, undue harm, Admiral Cistern says before gesturing for the video to start. This time the video shows the different colored sperm, but there's something subtly wrong with the brighter colored ones. The lighter colored ones win out the race and the egg seems to get properly fertilized. What happened? I had X chromosome spermatozoa deliberately damaged to render them incapable of properly fertilizing the egg. However, their mere presence was enough to ensure a proper male fertilization. My current hypothesis is that there is a specific chemical or hormone that alien eggs require a sample of, or it self-terminates rather than fertilizes. This chemical or hormone is exclusive to the X chromosome spermatozoa and also allows it to penetrate the outer wall with greater ease. How and why is still beyond me, but it would explain the enormous gender disparity in the galaxy at large. Dr. Wren explains, and Admiral Cistern nods while stroking his chin in thought. Do we have any options to correct this odd imbalance? He asks. As of yet, no, but I assume that a more precise form of spermicide that exclusively weakens but does not kill X chromosome spermatozoa would allow for a jump in male births the galaxy over. Such a thing would require years and years of research and development in order to get down properly and likely require customization for each individual species, of which there is a truly enormous number. Products for the market, then. I'll be speaking with our lawyers to see if we can get a patent on such a thing. A product to guarantee male births should sell well. Admiral Cistern notes. Perhaps not, sir. Another scientist interrupts him. Dr. Ricken, do you have another opinion, ma'am? He asks the behavioral scientist. Yes, sir. When it comes to a great many of the systems in the galaxy at large, they seem to be in a state of stasis, for a lack of a better term. There has been little in the way of advancement or desire to advance. The general consensus the galaxy over is that they are in a golden age, which is somewhat accurate, but they've become massively complacent. A good example would be the Apuk species as a whole. They behave like they freshly walked out of the age of antiquity with knights and castles and such. So much so that the equivalent title for the Princess Miro Noir would be that of a knight, and, amusingly, with our soldier Vernon as her lady. She explains to some light chuckling around the room. Can you pinpoint the source of this cultural stagnation? I've found a few contributing factors, sir. Nothing concrete, though, but many things that would add to it. One of particular note here on Centris is a society of conspiracy. There are an enormous amount of petty conspiracies further gumming up the already rusted and slowed wheels of progress. The conspiracies can be about just about anything, and the many hundreds of thousands of them seem to be one of the primary sources of the hack. Thankfully, they're mistrustful and believe the information completely compromised by one another. How petty are these conspiracies exactly? Admiral Cistern asks, and the scientifically minded woman sighs in exasperation. While a very passionate answer, it's not a very accurate one. May I have more, please? Sir Philip and the other intelligence officers on the ship have identified nearly 100 different conspiracies to change the color of the font on officially broadcasted announcements from the Senate. Their methods range from bribery to blackmail to planting agents to disrupting votes electronically to taking hostages to planning out assassinations. There are conspiracies about changing the approved weaponry for the Senate Guard, dozens for each type of weapon, all of them operating independently and without knowledge or each other, or knowledge of how to actually accomplish their goals. The local hobby is conspiracy to such a degree that some people put them on their resumes. You must be joking, Admiral Cistern says, and Dr. Ricken tosses a data chip to Dr. Wren. He plugs it in and brings up the first file. It's a prospective letter to work in his office with job experience, citing the Sisterhood of the Shadowed Stare and most august augurs of avenging as references with 8 years between the two. He pinches his eyes closed and takes a few deep breaths as he steadies himself. When he opens them, the madness has not vanished, but it seems more manageable. Very well. Is there anything else I should be aware of? Only that we and our emergence from cruel space is the largest cultural shift in 600 years, with the foundation and rapid growth of the Meccan Reach being the last one. Our shifting of some laws, even in small and seemingly inconsequential ways, is comparatively big news, as most of the conspiracies don't get a tenth that far in decades, let alone weeks or months. Thank you, Dr. Ricken. Dr. Samuel, you've been researching the energy weapons of the galaxy. What do we know? We already have the math and engineering figured out for most of this, sir. Dr. Samuel says with a smile as he tosses his own data chip to Dr. Wren, who plugs it in before tossing Dr. Ricken her own back. A self-starting slideshow of plasma and laser weaponry blueprints begins playing in cycle. They skip a couple of steps with the axiom, but otherwise we not only know exactly what's going on here, but can make our own, now that we have the techniques and technologies written out for us. None of it will work back home, but we can certainly make it here. What are the big hurdles for getting it to work on Earth? Admiral Cistern asks, and the smile turns into a rueful grin. First off is power. The sheer amount of electricity the laser needs and the power-intense process of compressing, igniting, and magnetically bottling before launching the plasma is frankly absurd. Without Axiom as the big battery to draw on, you'd need an enormous source of energy. Even the smallest models would need a truck to move its battery around if it's not an emplaced bit of hardware. Any more complications? 1 for the laser, and 2 for the plasma. The plasma's magnetic fields, bottling and rail are extremely complicated, and without Axiom using components as a stabilizer, we can't get it to work, though we're working on it. The other thing is a shared problem between the two. The amount of power that both give out is brutal on the equipment itself. Without the Axiom-based internal shielding, both weapons can only provide a small handful of shots before burning out, if not failing explosively. Research into synthesizing more robust materials that don't need that level of protection is ongoing, but is mostly in the metallurgist's camp, not mine. Anything else you'd like to say? Admiral Cistern asks, and he considers. We've opened research into 2 weapons based on the laser frame. Samuel says, walking over to the projector and switching to another file, a blueprint fills up half the screen, and the other half is filled with mathematical equations. Where lasers work, so do masers. Or rather, microwave ray lasers. The name is descriptive, and the function is a much more deadly and subtle laser. Effectively, instead of burning through something with light, it agitates the water molecules in its target until they convert to steam in an instant. This leads usually to a nasty bang from within the target and is invisible to the naked eye, as well as less susceptible to atmospheric interference. That sounds like a nightmare to deal with. Not much worse than an ultraviolet laser, and since it's an unknown technology, it'll have the added benefit of being technically legal around the galaxy, unlike invisible lasers. You mentioned a second technology? Admiral Cistern prompts, and Samuel points to the math. Gamma-ray lasers, the bigger and meaner and much dirtier brother of the maser. It's pure theory at the moment, but it uses the nastier frequencies of radiation to make the beam. It will burn through you, blow up everything around it, and irradiate the area it hits and travels through. It's only in the theory stage, but if you want to add to whatever Geneva Convention they've got out here, a grazer will do it. Let us assume that we will not be committing war crimes unless absolutely necessary. Understood? It's just theory crafting, Admiral Sir. It won't ever be more than numbers without your direct approval, Samuel vows. Good man. Admiral Cistern says, and his communicator goes off. Admiral Cistern, he says. Sir, not an emergency, but something you should know. Trooper. Or is it researcher now? Anyways, Vernon Shea is on the Dauntless showing his wife around. He's avoiding critical areas, and I doubt he's dumb enough to change that, but you should know he's there. One of the bridge crewmen on security detail reports. Just ring him when he's showing her someplace he shouldn't. He's not stupid enough to disobey. Admiral Cistern responds he had evaluated the man's profile both when he became part of the Nerd Squad and when he got married. Vernon, while not normal, was still solid and sensible. Yes, sir. All right. That reminds me, ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Cistern says after turning off his communicator. What about our research into armor and the suggestions from the Nerd Squad? To be honest, sir, we were planning on waiting until after the field test in the Shellcracker tournament. Samuel responds with a shrug. Fair enough, however. How do you know? How much is the rumor mill churning? The entire crew, as well as all the poorly inserted spies, know, Dr. Rickon says, and there's muffled laughter. We have spies on board? This is the sort of thing he should know about, even if it is somehow amusing. They're really obvious, sir. Sir Philip has been using them as training aids for the intelligence division. They seem to think that a Tret with a uniform can just walk on and be mistaken for a human solider. They can't. They really can't. But we haven't let them know that yet. She explains, and that does soothe his nerves more than somewhat. If they're that incompetent, it's no wonder I haven't been informed. How poor a spy are they? The closest they get to actual infiltration is when they're mistaken for strippers. The average girl out here is curvy to the point that Jessica Rabbit looks flat and plain by comparison. It's really, really damn easy to tell who's an alien bimbo and who's actually part of the crew, Dr. Rickon says in an amused tone. How those idiots can tie their own fucking shoes is a mystery to me. Solve it on your own time, Doctor. I want you focused on your field of expertise. Admiral Cistern orders with a gentle smile, and despite her not technically being a soldier, he gets a crisp salute from her. Good woman,